The story continues with the girls from Ijin's class batting their eyes at him. He gets a message from Diane informing him that she is going home alone today and that he should have fun at school. But Ijin had no idea what kids his age do for fun. His classmate asked him if he was free today and that he should go hang out with him. Just as he agrees, the two bullies of their class interrupt them saying how Ijin sent Kisu overseas. When Ijin refuses to take credit, they remind him how he beat them up at the bar all by himself. And they left because they were embarrassed to even show their faces in the school. They offered him to come hang out with them, but Ijin informed him he had already made plans with Young Chan. Young Chan was getting pale. They asked his permission to hang out with them too in an angry voice. Young Chan immediately agreed to that as he didn't want to get bullied by them. Just then, a girl and a boy enter the class. The girl's name was Shin Yuna. She was the granddaughter of the SW Corporation, the biggest corporation in the country. And next to her was her bodyguard, Go Sukju. They were raised together ever since they were kids, and since then, Sukju has been her secretary and bodyguard. They had been studying abroad for 2 years, but now they were back. The bullies were worried to see Sukju and decided to lay low from now on. Sukju's eyes met with Ijin's and he wondered who he was. Yuna asks Sukju if the guy is a celebrity, but he had no idea because he didn't find anything about him in the files he had received. Ijin sensed she was looking at him and looked back. She smiled at him, but he ignored her, which annoyed her. Youngchan suggests they should go to a PC cafe. Ijin remembered his senior informing him about PC cafes and what people do there. He practiced all the famous games to blend in as a normal high schooler, but instead of having fun, he was treating it like a mission. Sukju gave Yuna update on Ijin, how he survived a plane crash and he was Dayun's older brother. The fact that a dead guy came back to life right before they came here was bugging them. So he decided to do a complete investigation on him. At the cafe, Youngchan showed his extraordinary play in League of Legends. When they asked him if he was on the diamond level, he surprised them by saying he was a challenger. They start treating him like their master after that. Ijin came home after that and her sister met him on the way. They talk about their school life lately and Ijin asks her if she is okay now. She was doing fine now that they were gone. Even though Ijin was already full, he still ate dinner with his family to spend more time with them. Seeing them laughing together, he remembers how he used to live up until now. There was a slight smile on his face now. The next day at the school, while Ijin had still not come to school, his friends were talking about him. They wonder who would win if Sukju and Ijin fought one-on-one. But the guy informed him that Sukju had been training since he was just a kid. No matter how good Ijin was at fighting, he wouldn't stand a chance against him. The difference between them would be like a professional and an amateur. Youngchan asked them if it was true that Sukju had taken down 20 guys once. They corrected him by saying it was 30, not 20. Some delinquents were harassing Yuna. At first, there were only 10, but even after 20 more joined in, he wiped them all out and walked out unscathed. They believed the rumor of him catching Yuna's kidnappers, who were retired soldiers, was also true. In conclusion, they conclude that Ijin stands no chance against him. Just then, we see Ijin and Sukju face to face. Sukju asked him about his identity and why he was faking it. Ijin rudely replies that he doesn't answer to just anyone. Sukju asked him if he was the reason Kisu and Heejin got transferred, but Ijin says he didn't have anything to do with them. Fed up with his lies, Sukju reveals that there was never a student like him at the school he claimed to have gone to before. On the other hand, Yuna and Dayun meet each other after so long. It seems they had a friendly relationship before. Yuna informs her that she is in the same class as her brother. He asks her about her brother as she didn't think he had a brother. Dayun informed her how she was surprised as well when she heard that her brother was still alive after the plane crash. His grandfather got this news 6 months ago and couldn't stop crying. Yuna was skeptical and asked him why he hadn't contacted them before. She told her that he recently started to get his memories back after the incident. Yuna found it hard to believe, but she didn't say anything that would offend her and congratulated her. She asked her if they confirmed he was his real brother. Dayun thinks they must have done a DNA test, and also her grandpa thinks he looked the same as he did 10 years ago. Dayun asks her why she is asking about her brother. She panicked and asked her if he had a girlfriend. In the hallway, Ijin asks for the evidence to back his claim. But Sukju just got this information by word of mouth. He didn't really have any proof. Ijin started questioning him why he was investigating him. It was because he was too suspicious not to investigate. Ijin told him that he faked his documents to come back home and left. But Sukju still didn't buy that and thought of gathering physical proof of him. Ijin was surprised that they got this much information on him even though they'd just been transferred here the day before. Sukju reported all this to Yuna about him having fake documents. He also mentioned that after they were gone, Daeyeon had been getting brutally bullied by Kisu and Heejin for the last 2 years. It was so bad that it was a miracle she even came to school. Yuna was pissed after hearing that. That's why Ijin destroyed Kinsa's gang twice. Yuna was happy for Daeyeon, but it was still a hard pill to swallow. If he was after her, he should have been quiet. Sukju mentions that the insurance money that his grandfather got after the plane crash could also be the reason. If that were to be the case, then Daeyeon might be in danger, Yuna says. After school, Daeyeon asks Ijin what he did after the plane crash and where he lived. He gives her a vague answer to ease her mind, saying he didn't understand the language where he was living and he was also suffering from some trauma. He says he lived a busy life. He asks her if she knows Yuna, to which she replies that in the past she was very good to her. She also mentions that she asked if he had a girlfriend. When they arrive home, they give their grandpa a gift on his birthday. Just then, Daeyeon gets a call. It was Yuna who was calling her to tell her something. The grandfather trusts Yuna, so he didn't stop her. But Ijin wasn't very happy with the sudden call. At the store, they catch up and talk about the stuff they missed. While talking to her, Yuna sees how her face brightens whenever she talks about his brother. Earlier, Sukju had managed to solid proof on Ijin, confirming he was lying about his past school and where he lived. When she was leaving to tell Daeyeon about all this, Sukju informed her that it still didn't disprove the fact that he was Daeyeon's brother or not, and that his job was to protect her, not Daeyeon. But Yuna couldn't just let him hurt Daeyeon. But now that she was here, she didn't know how to tell her. The grandfather was going outside to get Daeyeon when Ijin offered to go instead. On the way to the store, Sukju blocked his path. Sukju wondered if he was worried Daeyeon would find out about him. Sukju recommends not to interrupt them and let them catch up. Just then, a car comes knocking both of them down on the ground. Ijin was baffled to see them kidnapping Daeyeon. He tried to chase them with all his might, but he was too late. They both suspect each other for the incident and confront each other. But they soon realize it was neither of them. Sukju contacts his agency and lets them know about Yuna's kidnapping. When Ijin was leaving, Sukju ordered him to stay with him until he figured out who he was, while his agents looked for them. But Ijin was not going to stay put and told him to look for his client. He was going to look for his sister. Sukju was now sure he was not just a normal high schooler, seeing how calm he was. Ijin stops again and asks Sukju if he brought a car. In a club, the chief from earlier got the info that the guy was looking for him, which surprised him. At another place, we see a woman who got the news of Yuna getting kidnapped. She seems thrilled after hearing that and wonders if their grandfather should keep going after the company responsible for this. That way, they'll be forced to get rid of Yuna. At the bar, Sukju was surprised to see Ijin talking to the chief, who was a respectable figure in the underworld. Ijin told him what happened and asked him for any information. The chief denied having anything to do with this as they didn't want to go after SW Corporation. Jane informed him that his sister got kidnapped as well. The chief told him that some people who couldn't speak Korean well were looking for his men and wanted their cars. He suspects they had something to do with the kidnapping. He also gave them their hideout location. He also gave him his contact number in case he found anything about the kidnapping. Ijin also asks for one of their bikes outside. Sukju asks him if he is really going to go on unconfirmed information, to which Ijin prompted that Yuna would be safe until they got what they wanted. But who knows what they'll do with his sister. Sukju was surprised how he managed to stay calm in a situation like this and got the information as well. Ijin told him he was going ahead and that he could do whatever he wanted. Sukju just followed him in his car as he had already relayed the information to the agency. At the warehouse, Daeyeon comes back to her senses and sees Yuna tied. Yuna apologizes to her for getting her into this mess. She had no idea she'd be kidnapped as soon as she came back to Korea. Daeyeon was shocked when she realized that she had been kidnapped. Just then, a few masked men come there. Yuna asked them what they wanted, but they told her that she didn't need to know that. Just then, one of the guys asks what they should do with Daeyeon. They just kidnapped her because they were together. So the guy ordered his men to get rid of her. Yuna comes to her defense and threatens to bite her tongue if they lay a hand on Daeyeon. The guy didn't believe her bluff and told her to go ahead. Much to his surprise, she had already bitten her tongue. Her courage brought them some time for the moment. They both arrive at the warehouse. Sukju confirmed it was the location because the car in the surveillance camera was heading this way as well. Ijin was going in when Sukju told him to wait for the reinforcement. But Ijin didn't have the luxury of waiting because Daeyeon had no time to spare. Ijin grabs one of the goons in a chokehold until he passes out. We see that they had already taken care of many of them one by one. Seeing how used to taking them down so quietly, Sukju asked him again about his true identity, to which he replies that he was his classmate. At the headquarters of the SW Corporation, we see a guy relaying information to an old man. This old man was the grandfather of Yuna. The guy informed him that they demanded that SW cancel their recent business venture, otherwise they'd unalive her. The old man asks about the escort team, to which the guy replies that they'd reach the suspected location in 50 minutes. At the warehouse, Ijin and Sukju took down 2 more of them silently. Ijin asked how many he had taken down, to which he replied that he had taken down 5. Ijin took down 14, which shocked Sukju. Ijin again asks him to tell him the person responsible for this. But Sukju really had no idea. And this was not the only time this happened as well. Ijin informed him that the real group was with Yuna and Daeyeon. Sukju didn't understand what he meant by the real group. Ijin informed him by saying that they planned to kidnap the granddaughter of SW Group's CEO. For such a grand plan, the guy they took down was completely useless. While they were figuring things out, they heard someone coming their way. The thugs saw the unconscious bodies of the group. But just before they could do something, Ijin attacked one of them. The other one tries to run, but Ijin also breaks his leg and takes him down. Ijin suggests splitting up as they might have heard the commotion. Before that, Sukju offered to apologize to him properly after all of this was over. As they had expected, the guys inside heard the commotion. The leader ordered the men to see what was going on outside. They found out that it was just a high schooler, but they were not planning to let him go just because of that. Ijin immediately recognized that these guys were the real kidnappers. On the other hand, Sukju managed to sneak into the warehouse where the girls were. He didn't see anyone there and wondered if all of them went after Ijin. He spots the girls tied in ropes. Yuna asked him if the escort team was there already, but he told her that it was not the case. But the leader heard it too. He recognized Sukju, the guy who always came in their way, and warned him, saying he shouldn't have come here on his own. One of the guys attacked Sukju. This guy was completely different from the guys outside. He was way more proficient, but Sukju still managed to overpower him. He managed to bring the guy down on his knees. The leader compliments him on his efforts. He had also heard that he had been with Yuna ever since he was just a kid and trained day and night. But he reminded him that it was not a friendly spar. Just then, the guy he just took down attacked him with a knife, slashing him in many places. They reveal how they didn't plan to win this while fighting morally. The guy attacked him with a knife relentlessly. Because of the first cut, Sukju couldn't move very well and was getting slashed left and right. While they are busy fighting, the leader thinks of getting rid of Daeyeon. Daeyeon was terrified. As he threw the knife, Yuna got in the way to protect her. But the one who took the knife was Sukju, who got in the way just in time. The guy calls him an idiot and orders his man to get rid of them except Yuna. Just then, he hears the door opening. And the one who entered the door was none other than Ijin, who had completely decimated the guys outside on his own. Back at the bar, one of the guys informed the chief about the situation and the gang who was involved with the kidnappers. The guy then asks him why he helped the high schooler when he was the one to mess them up. To which the chief replies that it was not like they could take revenge on him, as they were the ones in wrong at the time. But he had no choice but to help him, considering it involved her sister. At the warehouse, Yuna and Daeyeon were shocked to see him there. Hearing Daeyeon calling him Big Brother, the leader laughed at the situation. In a horrified voice, Daeyeon told Ijin to run from there as those guys were too dangerous. Ijin was just standing there emotionless, seeing her terrified expression. Yuna blamed herself for letting 2 innocent people get involved in her mess. She proposed to go quietly with the kidnapper if he let everyone else go. But as expected, the kidnapper was not gonna do that. Sukju was in disbelief to see that Ijin's expression hadn't changed even in that situation. The leader changed the plan and ordered to take care of Ijin first. The guy charged him with the knife. But in just a few moves, Ijin stabbed the guy with his own knife, shocking everyone. He ordered Daeyeon to close her eyes, and she just did that. He targeted all this muscles and ligaments so fast that they couldn't even understand what just happened. The leader asks him if he was part of the escort team as well. He knows that something was off, because the way he used his knife at such a young age and with such a calm expression, there was no way he was just a bodyguard. The leader attacked him all of a sudden, but Ijin dodged all of his attacks easily. Ijin blocked one of his attacks, and as he was about to stab him, the guy moved back. But they immediately get to their second round. They were going back and forth against each other. But this time, Aijin managed to slice him. The guy couldn't believe that this high schooler was better with a knife than him. They fight again, but this time, Aijin doesn't waste any time and starts to slice his vital spots. The guy was pissed now. He pulls out his gun and points it at him. But before he could shoot, Aijin threw his knife at him and disarmed him instantly. In just one more punch, he took down the guy. Yuna and Sukju couldn't believe what they had just witnessed. Aijin told Dayun to open her eyes. When she opens her eyes, he stands in front of her with a warm smile to ease her mind. She points out that he is bleeding, but he just laughs it off. Dayun was so relieved she couldn't stop crying, while Yuna looked at him and wondered who was this guy. A few hours had passed since then. We see Aijin sitting in a hospital waiting for someone while the nurses talk about his appearance. Just then he gets a notification in his group chat, asking him where he was and telling him what they did when he was away. Earlier, after the fight, the police apprehend the thugs. Yuna suggests Aijin to take Dayun to the hospital to see a psychiatrist. She may look fine from the outside, but she must have been shaking from the inside. Not to mention the years of brutal bullying she's been through. As he was thinking about all this, Dayun came out looking fine. Even though she looked fine now, Aijin still couldn't forget her terrified expression. Dayun had so many questions on her mind, but she decided not to bother him anymore, which she had already done. She heard the cops talking to each other about how a high schooler took down professional kidnappers on his own. She wondered what kind of life he lived for him to fight like that. Just then, Yuna also comes there to check up on her. She apologized to her again, but Dayan asks her to stop. The bodyguard behind her was glaring at Aijin. Dayan proposes to go meet Sukju, and they all go to check up on him too. He is surprised to see them there. After they were gone, the chief bodyguard asked Sukju if he was the same guy he had asked to look into. He still couldn't believe how a guy like him could take them down. Yuna also chimes in, saying she couldn't believe herself. The chief informed her that it was not as simple as him beating up a lot of people by himself. The way he took out over 10 people silently was beyond impressive. 1 and 2 are understandable, but it's difficult for that many people. Not only that, he didn't kill anyone either, only incapacitated them unconscious. Looking at the wounds of the guys in warehouse, there weren't many people who could use a knife at that level of skill in training, much less in actual combat. Not to mention those were highly trained individuals. Considering Sukju's report on him, Aijin was most likely a trained professional with extensive practice in combat. This revelation shocked the duo. While going back home, Dayan thanked him for saving her again and again. But much to her surprise, he thanks her instead. It was the first time someone was worried about him before their own safety. This was the first time him experienced something like that. He thanked her for letting him know what a family was. At somewhere else, Yuna's sister was disappointed that Sukju managed to save her again by locating her before even the agents could. She wished to have Sukju by her side instead of Yuna's. But her secretary informed her about the strange rumor he had heard. It was true that Sukju did a lot, but he'd heard it was mostly done by a student from the same class. She couldn't believe this nonsense. But when he told her that even the CEO was showing interest in him, she was sure that it must be true. At the house, while working out, Aijin still couldn't forget what Dayun had to go through. Just then, Dayun called him to eat. He was a little awkward after showing his bad side to her. She assured him that she didn't find it weird that he could fight so well. She was also not going to ask him how he learned all that. She was just grateful that he saved her life multiple times. Because she was fully aware that there are some things you just can't share with anyone. Like how she didn't tell about her being bullied in school to her grandfather. Just then, Dayan gets a call from Yuna, who asks her to set up a meeting with Aijin. Aijin meets her at a cafe and asks her the reason she called him. She called him to apologize and to thank him for saving her life. But he doesn't take credit for that, saying he was there to save his sister, not her. She also stated that she was not gonna investigate him anymore, which made him look at her with suspicious eyes. She prompts how he looked so suspicious that they didn't have any choice but to investigate him. As he was leaving, she asked him to spare some time to meet her grandfather, who wanted to thank him for saving her life. He reminded her again that he wasn't there to save her. As he was coming back, he found a gangster who was injured on the way. The guy was the right-hand man of the chief who had helped him. The guy blames him for their situation, because they helped him and messed up with the Gozeong clan, and now they were attacking them. Inside the bar, we see that all the gang members are on the ground. The guy from the Gozeong gang came there with his whole gang to beat them up. The guy suggests the chief to just give up. We come to know that the chief's men were on vacation and they knew about it. The guy on behalf of the congressman states that he shouldn't have angered the congressman. And now he had made the Gozeong clan his enemy too. The chief mocks them, saying he was only educating them. Gozeong got angry and ordered his men to tear him up. But even though the chief was alone, he was still taking them down one by one, which angered the boss guy even more. One of them attacked him from behind with a bat, but he knocked him down too. They just kept coming and Chief thought this was the end for him. But he was still smirking, wondering if the high schooler managed to save his sister. We saw Aijin was on his way to the hotel. When he arrives, one of the thugs told him to piss off, but he kicked him in the face, shocking the others. He got off the bike and they attacked him, but he was taking them down like flies one by one. After he was done with the guards, he marched inside. When he gets inside, he sees the hotel was destroyed and all of the chief's men were decimated. Just then, a group of thugs came there, cursing him for coming there. As the guy came closer to him to threaten him, Aijin gave him a skull-crushing punch to the head. The others didn't waste a second and attacked him all at once. Aijin was still dominating them, not giving them any chance to even strike back. While he was destroying them, one of them tried to warn the others about him, but Aijin stopped him before he could run. On the other hand, we see a completely exhausted chief who had managed to take down 1/3 of their gang on his own. They realized that they'd have lost if he didn't prefer living quietly instead of building up a group. However, the chief was at his limit now, but he was still not going down without a fight. Instead, he mocks them again for thinking he'd just give up. As if the situation wasn't bad enough for them, they hear their men screaming. The boss annoyingly asks about the commotion when Aijin comes out of the shadows. The thugs were confused to see a high schooler there. Chief was baffled and asked him what he was doing there, to which he replies that he was there to return the bike. The chief couldn't understand what he was saying. The guy in the chute orders to mess him up as well. As one of the guys was moving towards him, the chief asks them to leave him alone. But they mock him for thinking they just let him go. But the chief prompts that he wasn't worried for him. The guy in the chute was confused hearing that when he hears one of the thugs getting his ass kicked. One by one, he started to brutally knock them down one by one. They couldn't believe their eyes. The chief had warned them not to attack him. He revealed to them how even he couldn't handle that guy. Gozeong ordered to remove him from existence with the chief, but he was still kicking their asses on his own. The chief wasn't gonna just stand there and watch. He started throwing hands as well, reminding them that he was there as well. In a few minutes, both of them took down a whole gang. The chief was completely exhausted and got on his knees. But Aijin still didn't look tired. The chief wonders what kind of monster he is. Aijin walks up to him and states that they are even now. It took a second for the chief to realize what he was talking about. He asked him about his sister, to which he replied that she was safe thanks to him.